Okay, folks. um, I've done a fair bit of reading last night. Watched quite a few YouTube videos, and I've come to the conclusion that doing your own benchtop power supply, while is a relatively simple task, there are some considerations you have to be aware of before you begin the project. And that's basically there's safety considerations certainly, but the cost of the components to do a neat job are relatively expensive. If I can explain myself a little first, you can pick up a 12 volt power supply on eBay, specifically designed for powering 3D printers, or certainly for providing 12 volts, which 3D printers primarily use. They also use 5 volts, but I'll not get sidetracked with that at the moment. The power supply power supplies which are suitable for use on 3D printers can be obtained on eBay for 25-30 quid. Okay. Now I've spent part of this afternoon costing the parts I'll need to turn this into a benchtop power supply. Now, okay, that's not specifically a power supply for powering a 3D printer. It's maybe but it's certainly more useful than a generic power supply. I saw a video on converting computer ATX power supplies to a lab bench power supply on eBay, and it was released by a young lad called Jumper1 TV, and he did a very thorough explanation and a video tutorial showing each step in the process, and it's all relatively simple. On the front of the power supply, he's got a main switch, and he's got a standby switch, and then he's got one ground post, and was it 4 or 5 live posts, so the different voltages. He's got five red posts, 12 volts, 5 volts, 3 volts, and -12 and -5. Now, I've done a look for the binding posts. I can't find them cheaper than £1.20 each, plus the postage and packing. So before you know it, for half a dozen binding posts, you're looking at 10 quid, okay, or thereabouts. Bear in mind, you'll then have to get the banana pins or banana connectors, or plugs. Banana plugs is the correct term, to fit into those posts. That's another tenner, okay. If you add in the cost of a main switch and a standby switch, there's also resistors to consider, because you need to have a couple of resistors in the circuit. Possibly adding in a dummy load resistor or a pair of dummy load resistors. Before you know it, you've spent 20-30 quid. I'm going to turn this conversion of this ATX power supply into a short ancillary project video diary. just really to, I don't know, record for posterity my efforts. But I know that, lads that are doing this daily can do this sort of thing in quarter of an hour, dead, I'll probably take a few weeks or more to do it, but a lot of the time I'll be waiting for components to be shipped to my location, or trying to source components at a relatively low cost. I've spent a day just looking for binding post, for Christ's sake. There's certain unscrupulous resellers out there trying to sell one binding post for £3. One binding post. That's just little wee short sockets. The wire ties on one end and a pin pushes in from the front at the other end. They're wanting £3 for it. Now, relatively speaking, £3's not a lot of money, but £3 for one wee socket like that. Anyway, consumerism for you, eh? Right, so I've ordered my binding posts. I've ordered the banana plugs. I should have a wiring line in the garage that I can utilise to wire everything up. I've still got to source dummy load power resistors and a low current switch. I'll scavenge I don't know if you can see that, a main switch out of an older power supply that I have, which is blowing. A low current switch shouldn't be a big deal to find. I might be able to source one of them without paying for it. I've got heat shrink already. I've got some LEDs lying around. What their ratings are I don't know, so I'll need to look into that. And in the video the chap mentioned 2 current limiting resistors. Now I don't know what rating those resistors are. I'll need to look up the band, the colour bands to find out. But I've got to be careful that his ATX power supply is the same as my ATX power supply. It should be, but you got to double check all this sort of things. So, yeah, 8 minutes. Christ. Okay, that's it for now. I'm going to go ahead with this mini project. Before this gets completed, though, I think that the header pins and sockets for the printer should be home. So this will probably get put on hold at some point while I crack on with that, and then once I've can go no further with that, then I'll resume work on this. And ultimately this might fail, yeah, in which case I'm just going to have to go out and buy a 12 volt power supply suitable for use on the printer, but at least the printer will be, well, hopefully be ready, or as near as, so that when the printer is got power, I can commence using it after the calibration process has been completed. So this is all a very complicated there's a lot of things that I don't know, and I'm learning as I go. When you hear about boys building these things in a single day, it just really, well, I'm sometimes skeptical if what they're doing is actually going to work, or if they're really that good, Anyway, that's all for now, folks. I'll keep you posted as and when I make further progress. Thanks for watching. Bye for now.